When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
This episode is brought to you by CBS. DMV is a brand new workplace comedy turning misery into magic and chaos into comedy. Starring Harriet Dyer and Tim Meadows, DMV is here to serve you laughs. Watch Mondays at 8:30, 7:30 Central on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome. It's The Last Show, your last stop for stopping. I mean, you don't have to stop. You keep going, but it's The Last Show. Here's what you'll learn on tonight's program. Scientists have finally done it. A teeny tiny AI-powered eye implant that may help the blind see again. It's amazing technology. AI used finally for something cool. Good and cool. We'll teach you about this implant in about 10 minutes time. After that, we covered it last week, the Fatberg. An iceberg of fat and wet naps trapped between the London sewer. But could it happen to your town? Could your city's sewers be clogged with a Fatberg? I love my job. We'll have a representative from the City of Toronto's Water and Sanitation Collection Department to answer this question. Should you fear the congealed fat? That's some of what you'll learn, some of what we'll cover, but we better jump right in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Good news if you want to avoid a stroke or a heart attack. You just need to avoid common health risk factors, which aren't that easy to avoid. I am joined by Dr. Josie Rogerson. From our mouths to your ear hole, it's the Rogerson Report, Science News. Josie, welcome in, my friend.
Hey, David, thanks for having me here. Let's talk some science.
Let's do it. At first I said, I just have to avoid these risk factors because 99% of all cardiovascular events are associated with them, at least according to a long-term study. But these ones aren't so easy to avoid, are they?
It's like there's 4 of them. Okay, so the 4 are if you have non-optimal ranges in blood pressure, so this is like more than 120/80, or on treatment, total cholesterol above 200, fasting glucose above 100, or present or past tobacco use. One of those 4, or a combination of those 4, preceded 99% of all heart attack or stroke-related things for people that have experienced that. So just think about that for a second. If you are having one of those risk factors, if you're in a non-optimal range of blood pressure, cholesterol, glucose, or tobacco use, you have a very elevated chance of having an issue with your heart or a stroke. And that's kind of scary.
Great. That is kind of scary, considering I quit smoking 7 years ago, and now I'm like, great, I'm still in a risk factor here.
But see, okay. So just to back up a little bit, let's make sure everybody knows how they did this. They followed 9 million people on this. So it's not like it's a small sample size. 9 million people, most of them were in South Korea, adults in South Korea. About 8,000 of them were adults from the United States. It was a joint study between 2 universities in the United States and Korea. And they were able to go through decades worth of their health, follow them through what they've been diagnosed with, what kind of cardiovascular issues they had. And they found that one or more of those combined would precede a cardiovascular event. So it's a huge sample size. It's very telling, and it shows that we know what the risk factors are. So that's the good news. And for your point, like, I just got rid of my smoking 7 years ago. That's a good thing. It means that you're attacking one of those risk factors the best way possible. So the upside to this story is that we know what the problems are. And so we can take steps to try and make them better for ourselves.
So I don't need to fearmonger. I can make health improvements to try to get out of these groups, and quitting smoking is better than currently smoking, which is just breaking news. We didn't know that, but now quitting is a great thing still. It's just kind of wild, and also I guess kind of comforting if you're super healthy and don't fall into these. You've got an extremely unelevated, de-elevated, non-elevated, re-elevated, up-elevated, back-elevated. I don't know how English works. I'm just saying if you're not in these risk factors, you stand a good chance not to get a heart attack or a stroke.
Yeah, you're in a much safer category. I mean, of course, events can still happen. Like, it's not like this is a 100%. If you don't fall into these, you'll never have a heart attack. You know, there's other chances around that, but it's important. I think when you do big studies like this, what you're showing to humanity is like there are clear risk factors, clear things that we know inform the next steps in your health, and we should be really working to in all society to try and work on these. So like the foods that we eat, the foods that we serve in restaurants, the foods that go into our grocery stores, the foods that our kids eat should all be informed by the study like this. The way we sell tobacco products should be informed by a study like this. And tobacco is one of the great cases where there has been tons of progress made on how and how it gets sold, how it gets advertised. So, you know, that's one of the good cases. But what about the food? What about stress? How blood pressure changes with stress and sleep? These are all things we're all dealing with all the time. I, as a parent, have more stress and less sleep than I'm dealing with. So
I told you to read that pamphlet, and then you could have avoided having kids. But no, you didn't want to read the pamphlet.
I tried. I was too tired.
Yeah, I don't know. Tobacco. That's a whole what's the word I'm looking for here? Something show, you know. It used to be Popeye cigarettes. Now it's Popeye candy sticks. I think we need to really be careful about marketing this stuff, especially to new consumers as they come of age, as kids turn 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever the age is.
Yeah. You know, they deserve to be brought up in a world where clear factors that are going to affect their health long term should be mitigated. And we should all have a choice here. Like, if you want to just like gorge out on terrible food and smoke tobacco all your life, I guess technically that's your right. But as an adult, you can make those informed decisions. But for kids, especially like that preteen teen and what they're being exposed to, they don't have the same ability to make the same risk management decisions. And this is like well documented in youth, that youth are fantastic at pushing boundaries and having no idea what's going to happen when those boundaries are pushed too far. That is, it's just their brains are not built to manage that. So we need to, as society, help them put some guardrails there so that they can grow their brains to the point where they can make the informed decisions and then decide to do all tobacco and bad food all the time.
Our next story here I love. Is your dog a ball junkie? And I mean really a junkie. Like, what happens to your dog's brain when it's addicted to the ball? Turns out not too different than what happens to our brain when we're addicted to stuff.
What I loved about this story is that I did not realize that dogs are the only animal that exhibit that compulsive addiction-like behavior that we've confirmed. Now, just to be clear, we're not saying that they are addicted to it. Scientists aren't saying that they are actually addicted in the way that we can get addicted to things, but they exhibit addiction-like behavior. So these are things, they did this study with 56 male dogs and 49 female dogs. 33 of them exhibited behaviors that are like, that fixate on their toys, they're ball junkies. They displayed cravings. They showed lack of interest in other toys, lack of interest in food. They couldn't be pulled away from their toy.
Don't get me started on how I behave when I'm at the blackjack table, because it's starting to sound like that. And yes, I avoid blackjack because of it. I'm just saying, it kind of seems like a gambling addiction.
The researchers likened it to internet gambling or online gaming. Where you continually need, this is the hallmark of addiction, where you continually need more and more and more hits of that dopamine for it to satiate you, right? So just one more hit, just one more hit, just one more hit. That's an addiction. And they were actually able to show that through surveys with the owners of these dogs, specifically that the dogs needed more time with their toy, with their ball, their precious ball. They needed more and more and more time before they would feel like they could let the ball go, which is exactly what we do as humans.
Just let it go, Jesse. We're here with Dr. Jesse Rogerson talking science news. When we come back, an AI-powered eye implant that may help blind people see. This seems like a cool invention, and we'll discuss it after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
We're broadcasting relationship truths and scientific discoveries with a comedian's touch. The last show with David Cooper.
I don't know whether to be excited about this next story or be fearful that we're turning people into cyborgs. There is a new AI-powered implant that may help blind people see, which sounds really cool on its face, but is it like Terminator 2 in action? We'll find that out with Dr. Jesse Rogerson. He's an astrophysicist. He joins us for Science News. Check out the book he co-authored, Daydreaming in the Solar System. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Should I be fear-mongering that we're turning into cyborgs and this is the end of humanity and it all starts with one AI-powered eye implant?
Well, would I be able to stop you?
No, you would not. But this thing sounds really cool. I mean, it would stand to reason that, I don't know, these circuits helping the neurons and the neurals, and you're going to explain how it works, and I know I sound like an idiot, them being powered by technology like AI could potentially help a lot.
I think this is a really cool era that we're moving into where we can start using sort of biomechanics and small little chips and artificial intelligence to enhance someone's ability to live. This is specifically about helping people see better, caused by a specific disease, geographic atrophy, age-related macular degeneration. This is characterized by the center of the retina slowly losing light sensitivity, and people who have it they have less vision, but the worst of it, like the 1% to 2% that are really bad, lose complete vision in their eye, or one eye or both eyes. So it's a serious condition. It can have major effects, and going from a vision person to a non-vision person can be mentally challenging. It's a hard thing to do, to lose your vision. So what these people did is they had this little chip. It's 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters in size. And they took people who have already lost a lot of their vision for this trial, and they opened up their eyes. They got rid of the jelly that's inside your eye. They took this 2 millimeter by 2 millimeter light sensitive chip and put it underneath the retina. And then they wear a specific, once they've recovered from this surgery, there's a set of glasses they wear that scans, like with a video camera, it scans the scene in front of them, and then lasers or with an infrared beam shoots that image onto the chip below their retina. And the AI chip does what AI things do, interprets the scene, but then sends that directly up the optic nerve behind the eye into the brain. And the brain can take that signal from that camera into the chip, into the optic nerve, and start interpreting it as images. It was pretty successful surgery. People they've described it as relearning how to see, because what they have to do is they have to learn how to interpret signals their brain's not used to interpreting. It's like relearning how to use your eyes. But they are starting to be able to read. They're starting to be able to see.
Read?
read. They can see letters. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like, I have a friend who was born blind, and he had some surgery, and he kind of likened what he saw to like a grid of dots, like shades of gray. Like, he
interesting.
can kind of interpret what's in front of him, but it's very kind of not, it would not be akin to normal eyesight. It just helps him a little bit, but he's so amazed by it, and he'd never seen before, and this, that, and the other. The idea of reading, I don't think it was ever in reach for him. But this, to read with these things, that's wild.
Yeah, they're reporting huge success with the small group that they did this with. And there's some great first-person accounts from the people who did it saying how they're so driven to keep learning, to keep trying to read smaller and smaller things and train their brain to interpret the signals. So yeah, there's a huge success. And I think in terms of like quality of life, how we use implants, how we use AI, this is a great example.
Cool. All right, our last story, definitely in your wheelhouse. You are an astrophysicist, Jesse, and there is a company making a wild proposal to basically turn the Earth into a 24-hour daylight cycle, sort of, for solar panels, using reflective satellites that reflect the sun during night to solar panels. It sounds like a wild thing to have a grid of satellites around the Earth reflecting light during the nighttime onto solar panels to give us infinite energy. It sounds like a great plan. We can just do it tomorrow and boom, our energy crisis is solved.
This is bonkers to me. So it's way worse. It's way less interesting than it sounds. You say, hey, let's put a satellite up in space. We'll reflect light down onto a solar farm that is normally in dark for 12 hours, but we'll light it up. Great. It'll make more power. Things will be great. That's not what here's what they're going to do. They're going to launch upwards of 57, but possibly thousands of satellites that have a 10 by 10 meter, maybe even upwards of 50 by 50 meter size reflecting surfaces. They're going to go in a polar orbit, which follows the Earth's terminator. What that means is the dividing line between day and night.
So they'll be in what's said to be geosynchronous orbit?
A sun-synchronous orbit.
I like that. Sun synchronous. That sounds like a good name for, a metal album. We are sun synchronous. Okay, I'll stop. All right, so these satellites are going to be up there. They'll be kind of like at the night boundary.
Yep.
Reflecting what? How will they align properly? How do you focus a 10-meter beam exactly onto a solar panel? How do you prevent the degradation of the surfaces? Doesn't sunlight like erode metals and
so there's first of all, when they say that they're going to be able to reflect light down, they'll be able to do it for 4 minutes at a time. So if they put one satellite up, you could purchase 4 minutes of extra sunlight in your solar farm. And like, how ridiculous is that, right?
That's all we need to power, all of North America, probably.
Even worse, the amount of light that a 10 by 10 meter, it's mylar is the material, 10 by 10 meters would, when it's reflected down, would grow to a beam size of about 5 kilometers. It's their own math. It would be a 5 kilometer circle of light. The actual amount of wattage that you would get from that light spread out over that amount of area is milliwatts. Like, it's not even worth trying to turn it into power because the internal mechanisms of solar panels themselves would use more than that. So their math doesn't make any sense. The only way it makes sense is if you literally have thousands of these 10 by 10 meter things all beaming light towards the same area at once, which I guess technically is possible. But then now you are saying, hey, everybody, we're going to put a big thing in the sky that's like almost as bright as the sun and at our nighttime, at our dusk. Like the health implications for humans, like for circadian rhythms, for biology, for nature. Think about what this means for airplanes and like airports.
You're going to blind a pilot, isn't it? Yeah.
You're not even allowed to have a little laser pointer like 5 kilometers away from an airport. And they're putting up huge reflecting surfaces where they're going to beam light down onto the ground. It just blows my mind that they haven't done the math properly and they haven't even tried to think about some of the outcomes that could come from this. And I haven't even gotten to how bad this is for astronomy. So it's the most ridiculous project, and all in the name of trying to make power cheaper and have better generation of power, maybe for more remote areas. there's other ways to do that that's safe and reliable without impacting entire colonies of birds, monarch butterflies, humans, astronomy, like the list goes on. I could go on and on and on about this.
Wow. Do you think astronomers speaking up and telling this company what they're proposing is so stupid will prevent these satellites from ever being launched?
I think that astronomers have a huge impact here. They've already demonstrated their ability to have an impact on what SpaceX is doing with their huge constellation of Starlink. Astronomers in the United States and Canada have lobbied successfully slight changes to those satellites to make them less impactful to astronomy. So astronomers of one voice, both in the United States and Canada, are already talking about this. And I think that we're going to have a pretty big effect on it.
All right, a dystopian sci-fi future with sunlight reflecting satellites onto solar panels that barely give us any power at all and cause all sorts of problems. Hopefully, we will not see that future anytime soon. Jesse, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, David, anytime.
Dr. Jesse Rogerson, he's an astrophysicist at York University. Coming up after the break, could a congealed mass of wet naps and fat, a fatberg, clog your city sewers, flood your basements? Maybe. And details up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
The last show with David Cooper. Procrastinate your life away with us.
They're the unholy offspring of bacon grease and baby wipes, and they live in sewers, sewer-dwelling beasts the size of buses, congealed fat clogs, and they've affected the city of London. And therefore, we are joined by our foreign correspondent, Tony Five, to discuss fatbergs. Tony, welcome to the show.
David, I'm here in London in absolute carnage. In fact, the love child of, what did you say, of congealed napkins and bacon grease. I actually went out with her. She was actually a really nice person.
Tony, that's a topic for another day.
But David, as you're aware and I'm aware, I really care about cities around the world. We have just defeated a fatberg here in London, and I want to know what other places have got this massive threat, this existential threat, David.
And rather than just talk to some crackpot like you and me, we are here with a water sanitation professional. He's the director of distribution and collection for Toronto Water, but believe it or not, the water organization responsible for sanitation in, you guessed it, Toronto. His name is Bill Shea, and we are going to discuss whether fatbergs could roam the streets of any city, even Toronto.
Bill Shea, or as I like to call him, the king of the fatberg. Bill, how are you?
Good. I think that title belongs to the people of London, but thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
So do you wake up in a cold sweat every night worrying that a fatberg could take down your beloved city?
Every single night. It's terrifying. No, we get fatbergs, but I don't know if we've ever had a 100-ton one. So that actually is terrifying. I really feel for the municipal workers there in London. That's scary.
I mean, 100 tons. It was 8 double-decker buses worth, mainly made up of wet wipes. I guess you call them baby wipes or something like that over there. And it was mainly those which people have been told for many years, do not flush them down the toilets. They don't biodegrade. They cause a problem. And that combined with all the grease and everything, that it just congeals into this horrific thing. And in all seriousness, it blocks up the sewage. But what's it like for you? Like, you see it on a daily basis, don't you? And that's just at your house.
Well, that's where it starts. Tony is in the house. So we do see a number of blockages due to grease and cooking oil and fat and mixed with baby wipes. It's delightful. The idea there is obviously that baby wipes don't break down. They're also absorbent, so they absorb the grease when it comes down, and then it congeals, and it just keeps building and building and building until you have a fatberg.
Now, are all cities affected equal? Like, is Toronto's plumbing infrastructure maybe perhaps a little newer than London's, and therefore it's not as big a problem? Or is this really keeping workers up late at night, like it could happen anywhere?
It's a good question. I don't know that the age has much to do with it more than it does the practices of the residents and the kitchens, the commercial kitchens in the city. So And I think the Londoners love their fish and chips. That might be part of it.
We do.
So, So I think and they may have different bylaws. I know we have bylaws around what you can put down the drain, obviously. Kitchens have grease interceptors, things like that. But obviously that stuff gets through anyway. And people are still pouring stuff down the drain. And you get these big clumpy masses. Now, I haven't come across, I've been in this role for about 10 years specifically. I've come across some big ones, stuff that we've had to actually jackhammer, but nothing that was 100 tons.
Wait. You're just glossing over that. You got a sanitation worker with a sewer grate open, and they're just like jackhammering down there?
So when I first started the job, there was, sometimes with a sewer, so if you have a sewer that's going straight through on a street and you have to put something through it, let's say a pedestrian walkway or a subway that actually would have gone through that sewer. You have to go under it, over and up. And we call that an inverted siphon. So that creates more problems. And this was an inverted siphon. So on this side of the inverted siphon, the guys pulled the top up and they could actually walk on the grease. And this thing is about 30 feet deep. So they could walk on the top. So I said, well, I think we should probably get that cleaned up, guys. And so they went in and realized they had to jackhammer some of this grease out.
So you're confessing to the dirty secrets here.
I'm confessing to my shame, my Fatberg shame. Yes.
I mean, you don't ever want to Fatberg shame anybody. It's 2024. Don't ever Fatberg shame anybody. Listen, we're all come in different... Fatbergs come in different shapes and sizes. We love them equally, David.
True.
David, is this not an equal opportunities radio show?
No, you're right, Tony.
Exactly. Take that back. And I know, Bill, you don't speak on behalf of the Toronto municipality and everything like that. They love Fatbergs equal sizes, right?
They most certainly do. We call them Widebergs here. So we want to, yeah.
So, for example, what is the solution? Is there a solution? Because obviously these things just build up. You can tell people, the public, as much as you want, don't put this down the side. But is there going to be is there a technological solution for this, or is there something?
Yeah, I think really there's no technological solution per se. It's really public education. And we do have a program for not down the drain. We call it, and there's radio ads and to tell you what you can and cannot put down the drain. Yeah.
Wait, you're not down the drain? Radio ads might actually be paying for this show? That's wild.
Yes.
Can we get sponsorship? Because I think we could be the voice of the drain. Live from the Fatberg, David Cooper. Carry on.
Okay, so public awareness, is that the best way to fight it? Also,
so two things. It works on both sides. So public awareness that people understand that this will first and foremost, by the way, block their own pipes going out to the sewer and back up, cause basement flooding, which is terrible. Nobody wants that. The other half of that, of course, is that we have to make sure we're doing our maintenance and cleaning the sewers out on a regular basis and monitoring these things. So we have a very comprehensive CCTV program we go around and do. We have about 11,000 kilometers of sewers in Toronto. London's about twice that. It's about probably 25,000 kilometers. That's the way you find them. Or if there's a backup, you find them the hard way, right? Where the sewer's already backed up and we have to go into CCTV it and clean it out. But it's never fun to find.
The circumference of the Earth is only, 40,000 kilometers? You have 1/4 the circumference. If you took Toronto sewers, you could wrap them a quarter around the Earth.
I never thought of that, but I do appreciate that. I'm going to start using that in the future. That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, use that as a drop-in with dinner dates and Tinder dates and everything like that. I'd use it. But so, for example, do you use stuff like drones? Because like you said, you've got so much tunnels to cover. Do you use drones or unmanned vehicles or whatever to go down and look?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So we've just started to use drones. They call them semi-autonomous drones. They don't need to be connected to, the controller necessarily. You tell it, you give it a path to go. They started in mining and they go down and they do their own little thing and they pop up. So we started using those. We have all sorts of, CCTV vehicles, but more and more. We even looked at that Boston Dynamics dog. I don't know if you've seen him.
No way. I would have loved to see the Boston Dynamics AI dog running down a sewer full of poop.
I thought I might get fired for that. I didn't think that would go over well in the media, so I decided not to go with that.
Why are you disclosing this? We are the media. I mean, relatively speaking. I just want to rewind to 1 minute ago when an actual guest told Tony 5 that he asked, and I quote, "A great question. Tony, it's a big moment for you."
I know it was a big moment for us, David. Can you clip that and send it to the
I'm
award
going
shows?
to.
And just put Bill as an advocate. But Bill, so we've spoken about that. But in the UK, this was like a severe problem. So where it was, this latest 100-ton Fatberg was underneath a very affluent area of London. And if it had blocked up, you're talking tens of millions of dollars worth of housing each going round. And obviously it was, affluence over effluence, I guess.
Well done.
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Very well done.
Now, I guess we have just a little bit of time. Any advice you would want to give the public to make things a little bit easier for those heroes with sledgehammers and jackhammers breaking up Fatbergs to make, I don't know, things easier for you at Toronto Water?
Yeah, 1,000%. So don't flush anything but human waste and toilet paper, number one. Keep the dental floss out of there, no sanitary stuff. And don't pour fat, oil, and grease down your sink. For that matter, nothing hazardous, but that in particular, because even though it helps us in the city from coming across Fatbergs in the deep, dark sewers, it helps you by not backing you up.
All right. Or keep pouring it down there. That way you won't be out of the job, Bill.
That's probably a better idea. That hasn't been lost on me, David. I appreciate that.
Well, Bill Shea is the Director of Distribution and Collection at Toronto Water. Bill, thanks for joining us and talking about Fatbergs.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
And Tony Five, our foreign correspondent in London, England, the Fatberg King, the real one at least. Tony, thank you.
David, I'm going to go buy myself a jackhammer.
Have you ever been held hostage by anxiety? Does anxiety block you from being the person you want to be? Do you find yourself saying things like, it's not the right time? Up next, how to break that negative anxiety cycle.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
More rewards, more savings. With American Express Business Gold, earn up to $395 back in annual statement credits on eligible purchases at select shipping, food delivery, and retail subscription merchants. Enjoy the benefits of membership with the Amex Business Gold Card. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
When your therapist won't take your calls anymore, there's always the last show with David Cooper.
Being held hostage by anxiety. That is our topic here with therapist, social worker, and friend of mine, Gary Direnfeld. It is Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. I'm convinced this happens to a lot of people, Gary. So much so that a lot of people won't be willing to admit it. There are things in our life that cause us anxiety. It may be small, that we're unwilling to do, but in the perfect world, we would want to do, and maybe even want to do regularly.
Yeah, on a more extreme level, leaving your house. On a less extreme level, maybe it's speaking up at a gathering. And here's the thing, many people are held hostages by these feelings that are disproportionate to the event. I mean, anxiety, so hang on, before I even go there, people say, trust your gut. And if you have an anxiety disorder, you actually don't want to trust your gut.
Your gut is full of you-know-what, so why should you be trusting that?
Exactly. Your gut is full of you-know-what, so you don't want to trust it. The reason it's an anxiety disorder is because your gut is lying to you. Your gut is trying to make you feel like something is, in a sense, dangerous, bad for you, when indeed it really isn't. It's, in a sense, in your head. I mean, that's where anxiety resides. It feels like it's in the gut, but it's in our brain.
I don't like dancing, and I'm going line dancing for Halloween. I'm going to a line dancing party, and I'm nervous about it. It's like not for another few days, 9 days.
David, be nervous. I can't imagine you line dancing, actually. I think this is going to be a riot.
I know.
However, who cares?
I know. And everyone there will look like an idiot. Line dancing by definition. The activity, the central thesis is look like an idiot.
And all those line dancers out there are ready to throw darts at you and I right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've upset the line dancing lobby. All millions of them are going to come after me. Come on, who line dances? Let's be honest here.
But it's a great example. There, sometimes it's our ego, how we're going to be perceived, that is creating the anxiety and gets in our way. None of us truly loves losing our sense of dignity.
And but dancing does it for me, so I just avoid it. And my girlfriend Miranda would love it if I danced more. I mean, I'll get a little boogie going at a friend's wedding, I guess. But yeah, I just can't bear myself to do it. It's a silly example, but I avoid activities that involve dancing, and I'm at peace with it. But what if that activity is going to the grocery store, or filing your taxes, or I don't know, hanging out with friends? It can really hold you hostage.
And we make these things so much larger in our mind. So, what we want to do, because our gut is betraying us, that is the nature of an anxiety disorder. We want to put thinking between feeling and doing. That's the heart of cognitive behavioral therapy.
I feel like I got to get a plaque. Thinking between. Wait, say it again.
You have to put thinking between feeling and doing.
Thinking between feeling and doing. You should be there. Your face should be between the words feeling and doing.
Yeah.
On this plaque.
You talk about a plaque. I'm a workaholic, or I used to be a workaholic. Not so now that I'm relaxed, what am I?
I don't know.
Retired. There's the
retired,
word retrieval.
Still
problems.
Addicted to workaholic, are you?
So I had a piece of wood carved into the word relax that used to sit on top of my computer monitor. And that would be a reminder to me to turn off the computer, to go see my wife, to spend time with our kid. That word relax, carved in wood, sitting on the computer, helped me be mindful, helped me remember. And you talked about having a plaque. There's actually technical jargon for this. We call this a cognitive cue. A cognitive cue. It's a fancy-dancy word for reminder. And you can use that if you have anxiety as well. And whatever your little saying is, word, picture, cognitive cue, you want to post it. You want to place it somewhere where it remains visible to you as you need it. I used to tell some people who couldn't turn off the day's work when they arrived home, and then it would spill into the family, put a Post-it note on the dashboard of your car that says relax, or you're home, drop it, whatever. And just that subtle reminder helps us center ourselves so that we are hopefully less held hostage.
Interesting. Kind of like a mantra, if you will.
Yes. So this practice of what, we mysteriously call mindfulness, it sounds like, mindfulness. It really is as simple as that. It's just creating a reminder. It's just about, I have to remember this in the moment. And then when we are there, that self-talk, because so many have that negative self-talk, that bird chirping in your ear, don't go, don't do it.
I believe people are fundamentally smart. I mean, I turn on the news and that belief gets challenged every day, but we're smart people, and so we can shield our anxiety or wrap our discomfort with logic.
Yeah.
And so we can tell ourselves it's not the right time. I'm just being realistic. People can come up with really logical reasons to defend their own anxieties and defend their own behaviors.
Oh, okay. Yes. I can use my thinking adversely to continue to overwhelm myself. You're absolutely right. But the exercise is to do the exact opposite of that.
Take a big thing like you need to apply for a job, which is daunting.
Yeah.
Oh, my printer, I got to go get ink for my printer and it's not the right day. And there's the printer ink store will be busy. And we can come up with these like rational reasons to prevent us from doing the underlying thing.
Yeah. So the next thing that we can do to help us managing the anxiety is to break down what we need to do into tiny, digestible chunks.
Yes.
We don't need to overwhelm ourselves with the enormity of what may be confronting us. But I call it the hokey pokey. You put your big toe in, you take your big toe out, you put your big toe in, and you shake it all about. So too with leaving the house. You don't need to plan a trip to the grocery store or downtown. You can stand on the stoop or the front steps of your house, catch your breath, sit down, take in the world, so that the door back into the house to that sense of safety that you crave, it's right there. It can act as your soother, so to speak. So you get comfortable those few steps out, and on another day, you're a few steps down the stoop.
It's the old cliche, like, where should I start? At the beginning. And if you break down this overwhelming task, I want to start dating. Okay. Get some photos for your online dating profile. Just take a few photos of yourself. Have a friend help you. Break it down so you can start at the beginning, I think is kind of a summary of what you're trying to say.
Yes. I want to spend some time talking about over-accommodation.
All right, over-accommodation, that is what we'll discuss here as we talk about being held hostage by your anxiety. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. We are here with Gary Direnfeld. More of Gary and his adorable face, which you can only hear and not see through the power of radio, up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 50% off with minimum purchase plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
For those who know that questioning everything includes questioning this show's existence. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Over-accommodating people's anxiety. That's what we're discussing here with Gary Direnfeld. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. My lovely girlfriend Miranda, and she's going to hate that I'm saying this. I'm throwing her under the bus. She used to be very scared to make phone calls. I don't know if this is like a young millennial thing. I can just pick up the phone and call anyone. But early on in our relationship, Gary, I was making calls for her. Gotta reschedule with the dentist? I'll do it for you. It's easy. And I wasn't really doing her any favors because I was over-accommodating her anxiety. And I'm not always there with her. We're not like codependent in other ways. And she has to learn, and she has learned, so maybe I'm not throwing her under the bus because she can do it now, how to make a phone call. Gary, welcome back.
Good to be with you again. And this is something many parents inadvertently do with their kids. They over-accommodate. They over-explain. The degree to which you accommodate your child's anxiety, the child doesn't have to work through the process of overcoming that anxiety. And as you over-explain, there's nothing to worry about, that you put so much effort into this, there's a paradox that happens. And the paradox is, well, if it isn't so scary, why are you taking so much time to soothe me? Right?
There's a cost of kind of quote unquote protecting people.
Exactly. So, a few years ago, I think it was 2015-ish, 14, 16, somewhere in there, the good psychologists at Yale did some experimenting around do we provide therapy to the children, or do we provide it to the parents? And what was really neat was providing therapy to the parents to address the over-accommodation that had just as good, if not better, outcomes than doing therapy with the child themselves.
Interesting.
Yes. And listen, very few children raise their hand and say, I want to go to therapy. I mean, when you have anxiety, the anxiety next attaches itself to the very therapy that could be helpful, and you can't even get the child there. So when the parent learns not to over-accommodate, to maintain the expectation, sometimes the kid's going to be crying and fearful, but unless they move through that next step, they're never going to achieve some degree of mastery and freedom over their anxiety. So the challenge for the parent in this is actually having support and learning how to manage their child's pushback. Saw a lot of this in my practice, helping parents with their kids who had apparent school anxiety. Now, you got to have a good assessment. You got to know that there isn't bullying going on at school, that the child has capacity to learn and do these other things. But assuming it is truly just the anxiety and not some other issue, we want to manage that over-accommodation.
Yeah, I think there is something to be said for kind of feeling that fear. Maybe if we're taking your example of a kid who's kind of scared to go to school, scared of the lunchroom, normal kid stuff, you feel it and you act anyway,
Yes.
And if kids don't learn that, because if you protect them from all these anxieties, they're going to be maladapted adults. They're going to be adults who are scared to go to the office. You know, you're not really doing someone a favor by protecting them. There is a cost.
I'm 69. I was in practice for 42 or 3 years. And in each decade, there's been a shift in terms of parenting theories of the day or the decade. And we're in a period of time where the parenting approach du jour is referred to as gentle parenting. And to think that you actually have to push your child, it's the antithesis of this gentle parenting. So, parents really have to look long and hard. How am I inadvertently enabling my child? What if my child still doesn't want to follow through with whatever the expectation is? How is the parent going to push through that? Because you know what? Sometimes it doesn't look as gentle as what you might hope. You still can have a crying, screaming child. But the thing is, unless, it's like getting that needle. Unless you get the shot, which can hurt. I got my COVID and flu shot yesterday. My shoulder is sore. Unless you get that shot that can hurt, you're not going to have the benefit of the treatment. And so, strong message to parents out there that sometimes our children will not appreciate the process that can actually lend to their mental health.
We're talking about being held hostage by anxiety, whether it's ourselves, our loved ones, our children. I want to spend a little time, Gary, about talking about breaking that pattern. Like, how can we do the thing while anxious instead of waiting around for the anxiety to magically go away?
That's such a good question, because many people do just what you said. I'm going to wait until the bad feelings dissipate, then I will follow through. No, you have to do it when there are the bad feelings. You push through. The world doesn't end, and then it confronts your sensibility. There's what we call a cognitive dissonance. What I was expecting didn't match what actually occurred. What occurred was real. Maybe what I was fearing wasn't so real after all. We resolve the cognitive dissonance. That is what promotes healing from the anxiety.
Getting over the fear or at least powering through the fear, is a muscle that you won't have unless you try it. It's like skydiving. Maybe going to the grocery store is like skydiving for you. I'm never not going to be scared to jump out of a plane. But if I were to skydive, the whole point is to do it because I'm scared of jumping out of a plane, not waiting around one day until I'm magically not.
Yes. You're talking to someone who has skydived.
Skydovenized.
I was strapped to the belly of another person skydiving.
Yeah, that scares me the most. I don't even trust my own brother, my girlfriend, my parents. I don't trust my loved ones enough to be strapped to them outside of a plane. How am I going to trust some schmuck, who's probably just like a student trying to make a few bucks between class?
14,000 foot drop, 1 minute of free fall. It was the adrenaline that I experienced, David. The adrenaline lasted the better. I skydove, 9:30 in the morning. The adrenaline lasted till late into the afternoon. I was buzzed.
I can't wait until you get a tattoo, Gary.
I was buzzed on that adrenaline. But no fear after that. Like, you have a sense of accomplishment. And that's what I would want for people who are managing their anxiety. When you can, and when you do overcome it, there is a sense of accomplishment, a tremendous sense of accomplishment. And it's very empowering. And when you take that success and you apply it to other areas to which your anxiety may have attached itself, you can use that cognitively in your head to prepare yourself yet again and push through more.
Powering through doing stand-up comedy made public speaking, made doing radio, made talking to strangers so much easier for me. When you get accomplishments and work through some of your anxiety, it does unlock other things often. I wish we had more time, Gary, but we do not. Gary Direnfeld is a therapist. He's a social worker, a retired one, so don't try to book him. He joins us for Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. He's not taking clients, ladies and gentlemen. Please don't email him. Or do, but just, Gary, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, David.
Up next, the strange and bad plight of trophy husbands. When women out-earn their partners' relationships, even when both people think they won't fall into this trap, face strain.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
In the 70s, 4 young women were found dead. For nearly 50 years, their cases went cold. I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. In the season finale of Crime Beat, I share how investigators uncovered shocking evidence of a serial killer and hear exclusive interviews with the killer's family. Listen to the full season of Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music by asking Alexa to play the podcast Crime Beat.
Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
When women out-earn their partners, surprisingly, relationships can face strain. It can expose old insecurities hiding beneath the surface in what seem like modern relationships. Joining us is journalist Josie Cox, who recently wrote an article titled "The Plight of the Trophy Husbands," to dig in why when women earn more than men, for some couples, it means trouble for love. Josie is also an author and contributor at Business Insider. Josie, welcome to the program.
David, thank you so much for having me on.
This word gets thrown around a lot, trophy husband, but when you actually go to research this and figure out what that means for people, who is a trophy husband? Is it just a man who's financially supported? Is there something deeper to that label for most people?
I think we're probably more familiar kind of historically with the phrase trophy wife, right? The sort of arm candy, the kept woman, the woman who certainly doesn't work outside the home, who looks after her man. So this is kind of like another take on that. And the reason that I use the phrase trophy husband is because I'm basically talking about an upsetting of gender norms. So traditionally, of course, as we know, in heterosexual couples, women tended not to earn as much as men. Now, that is changing. We're seeing more female breadwinners than ever before in places like the US and other countries as well. We're seeing more women in the C-suite in kind of, top managerial positions, etc. So a lot is changing. But one thing that seems to be resistant to change is marriages and the dynamic in marriages. And I have been fascinated by this topic for some time. So I decided to do a sort of deep dive for Business Insider, looking into what the stats actually show us, what divorce rates actually show us, and why it is still the case, as you just mentioned, that in marriages in which women out-earn their male spouses, divorce rates still are so much higher.
On its face, seemingly progressive people who would outwardly say, oh, it's great my wife earns more than me. Does it affect them too? Is it really across the board here?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, these progressive couples, because so many of the people I spoke to, and I spoke to many for this article, sort of started off by saying to me, we're super progressive. The men were saying to me, I support my wife in whatever she does. I really champion her career. I want her to reach her professional and economic potential. And then at the same time, many of them talked about this elephant in the room, which is the conversation about money. And the extent to which, there's sort of an unspoken discomfort when these gender norms are upset. And some people can't even put their finger on it. They just say that there's more kind of tension in the relationship, that there's some kind of disconnect in communication at times. But, something kind of goes awry. And, my job in the article was to kind of figure out what that is. And so I spoke to a bunch of psychologists about it, psychiatrists, couples counselors, coaches, marriage counselors. And, without kind of preempting your question too much, your next question that you might have.
No, the question is, sure, people on their face are going to say we don't really know why, but there must be something going on. So What is it? What are these reasons? What's behind it? Is it money? Is it identity? Is it ego? Is it historic cultural norms that we say we don't adhere to, but we still do? Is it all of the above?
Mm-hmm. I think you've actually nailed it. I think it really is all of the above. Of course, it differs from couple to couple. And in certain cultures, some of those factors play bigger parts. But generally speaking, from the conversations that I had, what I established was that it is a case that we are still conditioned by society from childhood, right, from a very young age, to kind of internalize the fact that men are breadwinners and women are homemakers, that men, that it's sort of their responsibility to economically support a family. And this, of course, doesn't have to be explicit. Like, I'm not saying that we are raising kids and explicitly telling the boys, one day, son, you will go out and you will earn all this money and you will support a stay-at-home wife. That is not what we're doing. But it's everything from like the messages in advertising, the sort of subliminal signs that are in our media, in our popular culture, in the way that we behave around kids. There's plenty of research showing that in the way we parent, we encourage boys to take more risks than girls, right? Again, it's not something intentional. It's not a sort of, a conscious sexism or a conscious bias. It's just the way that we are still conditioned to think about gender norms and roles in society.
Your article mentions women saying their partners felt emasculated when they earned more. Why do so many men still think that their self-worth is tied to their paycheck? Or even worse, that their self-worth is tied to the fact that their paycheck is higher than their wives?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And what I would say is that not a single man who I spoke to said that they felt emasculated, right? They were not the ones who were using that word. It was the women who I was speaking to. And in most cases, it was the women whose marriages had not been successful, right? So they were talking about their ex-husbands using that word, saying he had felt emasculated and therefore our marriage didn't work out. I think that it is because we as a society still tend to equate money with power, right? Power has to be measured in some way. And I think a neat way of doing that, a neat way of kind of quantifying how powerful someone is, how influential someone is their paycheck. It's a sort of shorthand. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we can debate. You may well want to.
Well, I don't know. My ex-wife was a lawyer, and I was always proud that she made more than me. I felt that was the opposite of emasculating. I'm like 2'8", and I once dated a 6-foot ballerina, and when we were in public and she towered over me, I was very proud of these things. I don't know why. I can't fathom that someone would see their partner earning more than them as making them less than. shouldn't a couple be looked at as a unit and evaluated as such? Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this is radical thinking.
Maybe this is just like the way it should be, right? Maybe you actually are enlightened and progressive in the way that so many people claim to be, and not everyone is. But it's interesting. I quote one man in the piece, because obviously, one of the things I acknowledge throughout is that there are exceptions to this trend. Of course there are, right? You being a perfect example. And I quote somebody who started off in basically the same job as his now wife. They started dating when they were both working in finance. They were both making pretty much the same salary. There was sort of equity across the relationship. And now she out-earns him by, a factor of 2 or 3. And he does say, that he's really proud of her, that he considers the money that they make collectively as a couple to be this kind of like fungible pot of cash that they can both benefit from. And that's kind of in an ideal world, the way that it should be. But it seems that's not the case.
Those exceptions, like the guy you just mentioned, what's the secret to making this work if you've uncovered it? There must be couples for whom this setup works great, and others it kind of erodes things.
Totally.
What's the secret to making it work?
Well, I think one of the sort of through lines that I found as I was interviewing people was that the couples who had the ability to communicate openly about money and about how they felt about money, the emotions attached to money, the extent to which they equate money with identity, with power as well, right? Those couples that had those open conversations, they tended to be happier as well. And for them, it tended to be the case that the inequity in earnings didn't really matter as much as in those where money was still kind of like a taboo, kind of like the elephant in the room, right? As so many people said to me. But who knows? I mean, I think this is going to be a trend that we continue to see. I should also say the first time I became aware of the data showing these heightened divorce rates in these inequitable couples was more than 10 years ago. I started doing some research on this. So this is something that hasn't really materially changed over the last decade. I think that especially considering that we are seeing some kind of backlash against women's rights in certain countries around the world, that we're seeing a widening of the gender pay gap in the US, for example, right? It's widened for 2 years consecutively. Data has just shown. I think considering all of that, that is only going to slow down the extent to which we see progress in this regard.
Advice to couples based on everything you've learned, everyone you've talked to who are both, earning and maybe in a situation where the husband could be seen as a, quote, trophy husband?
Talk about money. Maybe don't use the phrase trophy husband. I can imagine that might make people feel a little bit uncomfortable. But talk about money. And I think, honestly, I spoke to a lot of therapists. It sounds like therapists can do a lot of good in this regard. Go and see a marriage counselor if money is an issue in your marriage, if you feel emasculated, if you feel like you're not getting credit where credit's due, if you feel like there's a power imbalance, maybe talk to someone about it.
All right. Well, the article is called The Plight of the Trophy Husbands. You can read that in Business Insider, where Josie Cox is a contributor. Check out her book, Women, Money, Power. That's available wherever books are sold. Josie, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
After the break, we'll look at wealthy folks. They're often seen as more selfish than the rest of us. And according to science, they are. But why? Do riches make us awful, or do awful people just rise to riches? Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Research shows that wealthy folks are more selfish than the rest of us. But why? Do riches make people ruthless, or do the ruthless just rise to riches? Does wealth cause greed and disconnection amongst those who have it? That is what we'll discuss here with psychology researcher Dr. Steve Taylor, who's the author of Disconnected, The Roots of Human Cruelty and How Connection Can Heal the World. Check that out, available wherever books are sold. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hello, David. Great to be with you.
So let's talk about wealth and selfishness. I feel like I see a lot of headlines making this connection, but is this something that psychology researchers have actually uncovered? Is it something we can say definitively?
I think we can, yeah. For the last 20 years, people have been studying the relationship between wealth and altruism, or wealth and ethical behavior. And there's a fairly strong consensus that the wealthier a person is, the less altruistic they are, And the more unethical and more selfish they're likely to be. So I think we can say now it's safely proven at this stage.
So let's unlock the why, which is what you've recently written about here. Does wealth change people? Or is it possible that selfish personalities were drawn to earn all along?
It's probably a bit of both. I mean, I shouldn't say we're not dissing all rich people here. I mean, there are obviously some people who become rich because they're talented, because they have good ideas, or maybe they just inherit wealth from their talented parents. So, we're just making a generalization. There seems to be a general trend that says that rich people are more likely to be selfish and unethical. And this comes from studies that have shown lower levels of compassion and empathy in wealthy people. Even in terms of driving, rich people are more likely to behave selfishly on the road. They're less likely to give way to pedestrians or to other cars. So there's a strong relationship between that. Rich and expensive cars are more or less likely to behave ethically on the road. So that's one strong piece of research. So as to why, I think partly people who have what I call a disconnected personality, in that they have a strong sense of separation from others, a strong sense of being kind of trapped inside their own personality with no emotional connection to other human beings or no sense of connection to the world around them. They feel a sense of separation and a sense of incompleteness. And therefore, they have an impulse to accumulate things to try to compensate for their separation and incompleteness. So they have an impulse to accumulate wealth and also to accumulate power and success and fame. And so it's not surprising that these people, they do often become wealthy and successful because they are disconnected. They also have a low level of empathy. So they find it easy to manipulate people, to exploit other people. So they're quite ruthless in their quest for success and power and wealth. They're quite ruthless. They climb the hierarchy very quickly. And they do often tend to become quite wealthy.
Let's talk about these dark triad traits, which you were sort of describing right there. First, I guess, tell me what they are. I've spoken about them on the show before, but I'm always deeply curious. And then how do people who are rate highly in these dark triad end up kind of economically powerful? How do they end up selfish? That sort of thing.
Psychologists used to talk very frequently about psychopaths and narcissists, and they still do. But now it's quite common for psychologists to speak in terms of a dark triad personality, which is a combination of three traits. It's a combination of narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. So those three traits usually exist in parallel. So it's very rare to find somebody who's a narcissist without some psychopathic traits and vice versa. Psychologists tend to study those traits together, and they exist in parallel in certain people. And people with dark triad traits, they do tend to become overrepresented in positions of power. There's a very high proportion of CEOs who have dark triad traits in comparison to the general population. And even politicians, surprise, surprise, there's a high proportion of dark triad traits in politicians compared to the general population. So people with narcissistic and psychopathic and Machiavellian traits, though on the one hand, they are impelled to seek power and wealth, partly because they feel so separate, as I described earlier. They feel so disconnected. There's something seriously missing from them, so they're driven to accumulate power and wealth to compensate. And at the same time, as I described earlier, they find it quite easy to attain power because they're so ruthless and they find it so easy to manipulate and exploit others.
It's often said, if only anecdotally, that money is correlated to happiness. The more money you have, the more happy you'd be. First of all, is that true? And I don't think it is. But why would rich people subscribe to that? That getting more might make them happier?
It's partly a socially conditioned impulse. We're constantly confronted with adverts, and we're constantly told by the media and by our educational systems that success equals happiness. The American dream, or you could say the European dream as well, that the more money you have, the more success you have, the happier you will be. And there is a correlation to a certain degree. One famous study about 20 years ago found that happiness correlated with increased wealth up to around $70,000 a year, or as we would say in the UK, £50,000 roughly. But the study found that beyond that, it didn't really make much difference. The more wealthy you became, it didn't bring you increased happiness. And in fact, increased wealth, a very high level of wealth, tends to bring other problems. You have problems of mistrusting others, suspicion, feeling exploited by others. So extremely rich people, we're talking about billionaires, they actually have a higher risk of mental illness and psychiatric conditions, and they have high levels of depression and addiction because they confront a whole load of problems which ordinary people don't face. And also, when you become extremely rich, you actually find less pleasure in the simple everyday things, the things which actually do bring happiness, like relationships and contact with nature. Those kind of simple things don't have the same allure anymore.
It sounds like it mirrors addiction almost, like drug addiction. Happiness just doesn't feel happy anymore unless you're on the drug. Like, certain activities don't feel happy anymore or don't make you feel happy anymore because you have access to everything. I know it's a kind of a shaky comparison that I'm making, but it does sound similar.
No, you're quite right. Yeah, I mean, there is this illusion, which I think, many people who aren't rich share as well, this illusion that if you have access to as many experiences and as many pleasures as possible, then you'll be happy. You'll live in a constant state of bliss. But in a way, rich people are actually fortunate because they can actually test this hypothesis, and they usually find that just, well, if they're intelligent, they'll think, oh, hold on, this is not where happiness actually lies. Maybe there's some other avenue I can try to find happiness. So, I mean, some rich people do react in that way. The Beatles are a good example, the pop group, the Beatles, because they became incredibly famous, incredibly rich very early on in life. But they turned to spiritual things. They started to meditate. They started to pursue other endeavors. So, that's one possible positive consequence of becoming wealthy.
Well, we are dunking on the wealthy as more selfish, but positive examples. Surely there are counterexamples of very altruistic, non-selfish, wealthy people out there.
Oh, there definitely are, yeah. I mean, as I said before, we're making a generalization. And in fact, maybe that's one thing that these wealthy people do realize, because there's a lot of research in psychology showing that altruism brings happiness. Actually, giving your money away brings more happiness than keeping money. So, people, I guess we could consider people like Bill Gates, who give a lot of money away. And, the act of giving money away actually does lead to greater well-being.
Interesting. I think what Warren Buffett is going to give away most of it as well. Like, are these the wealthy people that are truly happy, the ones that are eventually or currently giving it away?
I think they're likely to be more happy. They'll still face some of the other problems that extremely wealthy people face, like isolation, potential loss of interest in simple pleasures, mistrust in relationships, and so forth. But they are more likely to be happy. In fact, there was one study a few years ago which showed that money could actually bring happiness if you followed certain rules or certain strategies of using your money. And one of those was to give as much of your money away as possible. Another one was to buy time, to use your money to buy yourself experiences rather than material objects. I mean, everybody should know by now that buying things does not bring happiness.
Well, Steve, thanks for talking to me about happiness. I appreciate you being on the show.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Dr. Steve Taylor is a psychology researcher. Check out his book, Disconnected, The Roots of Human Cruelty and How Connection Can Heal the World. That's available wherever books are sold. Up next, AI-generated music. It's here. You've heard it, whether you've known it or not. But can the robots make music as good as us? The answer is more complicated than you'd think. Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
AI-generated music. It's here. It's with us. You've probably heard it, whether you've noticed it or not. But can artificial intelligence move us with music the way human music can? Well, a new study says maybe, but our bodies don't respond quite the same to it. AI music makes us feel a little different than regular music, and I'm here with someone who worked on that study. He's an audio-visual communication researcher at the Autonomous University of Barcelona and the University of Ljubljana. His name is Nikolaj Fišer. Nikolaj, welcome to the program.
Hello, David.
Okay, for those of us who haven't read your academic paper, what were you trying to find out when you analyzed AI music and our response to it?
So basically using both biometrical ways of measuring our responses and both self-assessment metrics, namely for biometrical we used an eye tracker, which was measuring our pupil dilation, our blink rate, and also a device for measuring skin response, and the questionnaire, which people self-reported their ratings of arousal, of emotional valence, of perceived familiarity, and congruence with of the soundtrack with the video. We basically were trying to assess whether AI generated music and human made music had evoked different responses when in viewers. And we found out that since we had two AI conditions, one AI condition, let's call it more creative, because the prompt that was used to generate this condition required more musical expertise, more creativity, more imagination, and in the participants that wrote this prompt, helping with the help of AI, they had to demonstrate some sort of, at least some minimum level of knowledge of music and audiovisual communication. And the other AI condition was almost zero creativity. It was just, let's say, happy 60%, arousing 5 out of 9, and some sort kind of closed and rigid parameters that served as basis for the prompt. So what we found out that to evoke a, let's say, good emotional response, being more calm, having higher perceived congruence, having your pupils more dilated, the condition that required more creativity was the one that generated a better response.
And would you say that our bodies kind of reacted differently to AI music than regular music? Like what exactly did you observe in terms of AI music versus human created stuff?
So regarding blink rate, the creative AI score had the highest blink rate, which we can interpret as being more relaxed when watching a certain stimulus. Which means that it can be, interpreted as the music and the video being more congruent, having, being less mismatched, requiring less cognitive strain to process this video with the music. So blink rate, skin response, and congruence those three metrics kind of had the same pattern across the three different conditions, and the creative AI condition had the highest blink rates, the highest skin response, and the highest perceived congruence, which we could maybe speculate that are connected. Also, both AI conditions generated a wider pupil dilation. Pupil dilation can be, can show different things. It can show fear, happiness, arousal, all of these kind of things. It's very difficult to define what it actually means, but being put into context with other metrics such as blink rate and congruence, it could mean that it was just more pleasant.
Interesting. I know there's a lot of people, I myself worry, not just for music, but for all creative works, that AI will sort of erase or make that human touch a little more irrelevant. But on the other side, your study kind of suggests that AI music can evoke emotion just as well as human music. I don't know, does it challenge the idea that creativity is uniquely human, that we can generate something that feels deeply creative using AI?
I mean, it's a very substantiated fear, because I would say my take would be on it, and I know that it's too early and there's a lot of things to take into consideration. I am being cautiously optimistic about it, that the true out of the box, the true creative results or work or art that people do, that in general requires to not be, adhere to some rules, to try to break the system. I think these people, creative individuals, will still exist. They will try to use AI in a different way. But what I would say is an implication of our study is that this kind of creative work that is associated with or that is done more in like a mechanical way, because to be a sound designer, soundtrack producer for videos, it's not only being a good musician, but it's you have to adhere to some rules. You have to work in some sort of principle. It's not always a place to express yourself musically.
You mean like film scores or television scores?
Film scores, exactly. Yeah. For a film scores, not only you have to be a good musician, you have to speculate about what the audiences will think a good soundtrack is to a supporting media. So, AI is also like this. AI has this, collective, repository, database of collective data that what we all have been feeding it with. So with these kind of creative jobs, yes, I think they are endangered. Let's say it like this. But the music for the sake of music, art for the sake of art, I think there will still be individuals who can make something different, and I think in the end it will not matter if it's work done by a human that is very basic, very simple. We've seen the trend of changing different scales in songs on the top radio hits in the last, I don't know if you've seen this report, but since in the last 50 years, the amount of changes in tonality in the top radio hits have gone from way down. So
yeah, a lot of songs just hit the basic 4-chord formula. It's all the same.
So if it's, if this is the case, it doesn't really matter, right? If it's something super basic, or if it's something, at least for me, this is how I try to see it, but
to rationalize it.
Yeah, to rationalize it, maybe to shield myself from the future. But I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic. I don't think that necessarily only humans can be creative, or that we cannot be creative with AI.
Agreed. And I think the models will just get better and better soon, hopefully. I mean, soon we probably won't be able to tell the difference, which is both good and bad. Well, Nikolaj, I've enjoyed the conversation, both about your research and also speculating about the future of AI-generated music. Thanks for being with me on the show.
Thank you so much, David.
Nikolaj Fišer is an audiovisual communication researcher at the Autonomous University of Barcelona and the University of Ljubljana. That's a wrap on the show. Thanks for tuning in. Do not forget to subscribe to our podcast, where you can catch our entire program, including the parts you missed. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza in your web browser. That's .pizza, not .com, for details. I am David Cooper. This was The Last Show.
And Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu, is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.